So as I mentioned, as we kicked this off earlier, guys, one of the messages or the message that we started off the year with our team last week was really just coming down to understanding, what you can control and what you can't control. I'm predicting, and I think for those agents that weathered last year and are weathering maybe the next quarter before we see rates really start to drop. I think it's going to be a very tremendous year in real estate. It's going to be a great year to be an agent, but you have to understand that there are certain things that you can control and there's certain things that you can't control. So you can't complain. Let's start with this, Todd. You can't complain about what you can't control. There are certain things out there that I've talked with so many agents over the past 12 months. A lot of agents got out of the business or getting out of the business and just complaining about the things that we are experiencing in the market and so forth. It does us no good complaining about it. And so here's a quote from Brian Tracy. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can control your attitude toward what happens to you. And in that, you will be mastering change rather than allowing it to master you. A couple years ago, who remembers COVID? Remember that thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I remember during COVID, I was on the phone because there was no in-person things, and I was on the phone with one of the head honchos for the Boys and Girls Club in Phoenix and the East Valley, and we were just talking about how everybody's adapting and our companies are adapting to to the market, to COVID, to the shutdown, the pandemic, and so forth. And she had a saying that really had stuck with me, and she said, "If you don't pivot, you perish."
Ooh.
And it just kind of really stuck with me. But we can't complain about the things that we can't control.
Yeah, there's another Charles Swindoll wrote a poem years ago called Attitude, and the second to last sentence says life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you choose to react to it. And I think that's that kind of goes in line with number one here, because the market's gonna obviously continue to have its evolution, whatever it may happen. There are cycles, but to the average person, are we thinking the job is much more difficult than it really is? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not in the trench anymore. My wife is, but I'm not. So, but I do have appreciation and passion for what everybody's going through. And I look at the market and I think to myself, if I was a brand new agent getting into the market today, what would be the pivotal things that I'd need to do to be able to, control my destiny, control me moving forward? And is it really that much of a picture? I'm telling everybody right now, get in touch with your coach. And Mike, you and I know we don't talk about what the 3-pack is going to be, but get in touch with a coach immediately. Know your numbers, know what you need to produce. And you know what you're going to find? It's not all that much. It's just, you got to wake up every morning and do that one thing. You got to go find that next buyer.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this all the time, is your attitude, your mindset. When things happen to you, if you allow that thing to make you upset, make you angry, make you frustrated, you're allowing it to make a choice for you. If something negative happens to you, you have the ability to be positive about it. There's a video that we've shown to the staff. It's if you want to look it up, go to YouTube and Google Jocko Willink good. When something negative happens to you, it allows you to take a step back and say good. When you vocalize negativity, when something bad happens to you and you say it out loud, you're making it real. You can control your thoughts. You can control your attitude, just like you said there. And so again, I think this year is going to be a lot of that. It's looking at what you can control, and you can control you. You can control, like Todd said, what's happening around you, what's happening to your business. But I like that quote a lot. I think it's really important to remind ourselves that we allow ourselves to be happy or negative.
Around the office, we refer to Nick as the mini Tony Robbins. So thank you for that. Appreciate that.
That's a nice compliment. Wow. Starting off the year well.
It wasn't supposed to be a compliment, but okay.
You know what? I chose to take that as a positive.
Exactly. So did I.
All right. So let's talk about the things that you can't control.
Yeah.
We cannot, and these are the things that we end up complaining about as agents. And when we sit back and we complain, it paralyzes us. And this is going back to, if you don't pivot, you perish. So these are the things that we can't control. We need to learn how to pivot from, whether it's how to overcome objections about what we're saying to people, how we're approaching our business, but we can't control market conditions. We can sit and cry and complain about it, but that's not going to change the market conditions. We cannot control the interest rates. We are not in that room when the Feds meet, which I have no desire to be. It just seems like a boring experience. But I bet they have really good steak, so I'm kind of torn. We can't control the economy. One of the things that keeps me up at night is the out of control credit card debt that this country is going through. I don't know necessarily, maybe Matt can come back sometime and go through how that might impact us. We can't control that. We can't control what's going on in the Middle East, and we can't control what's going on with the wars and how they're going to impact us as a country and so forth. We can't control global economics. We've got a crazy election coming up in 11 months. We can't control that. We can't control others' actions when we're dealing with other agents on cross sales. And then the other one that I didn't put on there, because I know we're going to talk about a little bit later on with Clint Fouts, is this NAR lawsuit, and us might have to use the buyer broker agreement, and we as buyers agents are going to have to be in a position to potentially talk our buyers into paying us.
Right.
There's a lot of complaining about it. There's a lot of fear mongering about it. But you know what? We can't control it. All we can do is figure out how to pivot from that.
Do you remember the movie The City Slickers?
Oh, yeah.
And Curly, right? The tall old guy that rode the horse, that was part of the whole program, but he wasn't a city guy. He was the true, rancher guy. And he kept telling, Billy Crystal, thank you. The secret to life is the one thing, but he never told anybody what the one thing was. And then Curly's like shaking him. I think it was him at the end. You can't die. You have to tell me what that number one thing is. Well, for you and I out here in the real estate world, we only have one thing we really have to do every day, truly. And that's find that buyer, find that willing seller that is amidst all of these things that you have on this list under what you can and can't control. That's our job. I mean, our job is to wake up. And again, I have to go back to the concept. If you sell 8 houses, or just say 10, I mean, okay, maybe I'm glorifying it, but say 10 houses at whatever you want to go to work for commission wise, multiply that out times 10. And that would be potentially what your annual earnings is going to be this year. But here's the point that I'm trying to make. You have to find 10, not 100. You don't have to go get 1,000 internet leads to find one that might even be breathing. The fact here is I'm going to say this. I'm going to be repetitious all year with this one. If you don't know what you have to do today when you woke up, you need to go get a coach. Period. End of story. You need to, or you're going to perish.
100%. I would imagine number 3 is going to be what you can control, but I'm making an assumption. So
that's a good assumption.
See, that's what I do.
You're awesome.
So what you
Tony Robbins right here.
If you systemize your business, if you are an entrepreneur, when these things you can't control happen, your system doesn't matter, or it doesn't change. Right. It doesn't matter what happens around your systems. You're going to be able to continue moving forward. I mean, we're going to go into what you can control. So I'm sure there'll be a lot more topics there, but I'll let you go for it.
Hey, look at that. What you can control.
Hey,
all right.
Here we go.
Obviously we already talked about it, but you definitely can control your mindset. It starts with your mindset. When I take a look at the things I can't control, I take a look at the things that are going on around me that are out of my control. It does come down to you either pivot or you perish. And how do we pivot from this? How do we adjust from it? How do we take advantage of it? Here's where it's going to get tough for people. You can control your work ethic. You can control the hours that you put into your day. If I talked to this kid the other day, he wants to get into sales and he wants to be like life insurance financial advisor, but he says, but I also don't want a job where I have to work 50, 60 hours a week. I'm like, well, this may not be the path for you.
Did you tell him if he finds it to let us know?
Yeah, it's the one thing.
It's the one thing.
You can control that. But I also put in, you can control your time management, because it doesn't matter how many hours you put into your day to work if you're not doing the right things, if you're not doing and putting enough hours into the money-making activities. You can control the amount of prospecting you can do. You can control the amount of networking that you do, going out and being part of groups and going to happy hours and things like that. You can control, and we're big on our team. We preach it, preach it, preach it. you've got to be having real estate conversations. It does you no good to encounter someone and not have a real estate conversation with them. And if you do, make sure you're collecting their names, phone numbers, and emails. And I was going to save this. So, Clinton, how many years have we been doing the West USA annual holiday party?
Oh my gosh, since the beginning.
From total,
I don't know. Just give it to me. Make up a number. Do what Todd does.
I think we're in. Well, geez, way back.
So
we had them for a while, then we stopped and we started.
okay.
So consecutively, we've had them for the past 4 or 5 years.
So we do these annual holiday parties, and so there's a room full every single year, 200, 300, 400 agents and their spouses and significant others. And God bless my partner, love him or not love him, I love him. He actually walked away from the holiday party having a real estate conversation with the bartender, and we're showing them homes and getting them to a home amongst a room of 300 to 400 real estate agents. You can control the amount of real estate conversations that you have. And you can control the type of training, for those of you who are part of this Monday morning, good for you. But you can control the type of training, the type of books, the types of things that you expose yourself that are going to help you become productive.
Those all I can say on number 3, well, not all I can say, but the premise for me on number 3 is the salutation to my email, which says live life on purpose. And what I mean by that is there's 86,400 seconds in a day. And the difference between us and Rockefeller, the first Rockefeller, not the ones that married into it, but, or born into it.
I'd be one of those too.
Rockefeller, yeah. But, the point that I'm trying to make is that when you waste your time, it's more difficult for you to be successful. When you're derailed or misdirected, or you try to get ideas from someone else who isn't you. Now, I do understand and I do believe in networking and masterminding and things of this nature. But what I'm saying is you always end up having to look in the mirror at the person who's there, because that's the only person who cares about your success in the world, is that person. And if you want to, if you want to maintain your respect with your family, with your children, in your career, you need to go to work. And so it may not be as difficult as you think. The question is, if you don't know what you need to do, it's very, very difficult. Once you know what you need to do, you can now do every single one of these things on here to bring you closer to that pin. But the most important thing is distraction. You have to eliminate distraction for 2024 if you want to survive.
And so, Nick, for me, when you take a look at the things that you can control and you strategize them and you take control of these things, it overcomes the things that you can't control.
100%. And I mean, for any new licensee, any new agent that's looking at this and is kind of overwhelmed because they're not really sure where to start, again, we're always going to go back to coaching. But if you feel like for the last 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, 8 months, 6 months, that you're just not putting the focus into the right thing, again, that's learning, that's building experience. So look back at what you've put your time into and where are you at with your business? Did you hit your sales numbers? Do you have sales numbers? Those are things that you can control. And that's where you should be trying to start here, and then looking for other resources to help grow. And that's what Todd pointed out. If you're working with someone who isn't successful or is telling you to do this, but you're not getting your quotas, you're not getting to your goals, you're not hitting what you want to hit, it's time to reassess who you're working with, who you're talking to.
Absolutely.
All right, check out this segue. So speaking of real estate conversations, let's see how good I am. So we are, it really is, again, for me, it really is about real estate conversations. The more, Todd, you talk about, the 100 people that you meet and all the numbers down, right? The statistics will break down to, 1.6 transactions.
You could listen.
But it
sorry,
but it does come down to real estate conversations. Nobody wants to talk to an agent, nobody wants to talk to a real estate agent, but everybody wants to talk real estate. So we are doing a very special event for our Goodyear office, but all agents from all the offices, and I know we have agents from other brokerages on, are invited to come to this free event on Tuesday, January 23rd from 10 to 12. Out there at the Palm Valley Community Center, where Ryan and I are just going to kind of walk you through the basics of how we take every encounter, move it to a real estate conversation, to a deeper real estate conversation, to collecting data and setting appointments. And so it is one of the secret sauces for us and for our team. And so we are just in a position, we're going to share this with whomever wants to show up. So there is the website right there, sixfigureevents.com. And again, this is going to be on January 23rd.